Fitting in is hard on the Duke supplement. That's the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. And if you're interested in learning about whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America, visit areyouontracktogetin.com. Again, that's areyouontracktogetin.com, at which you will complete a free 3-minute assessment. Your results will be emailed to you right away, and they will help you clarify whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States. So when I'm talking about fitting in, I'm actually sort of doing a double entendre there because, of course, you don't have many characters or words with which to work on the Duke supplement, on the responses you fill out there. But there's also a particular supplemental essay prompt that is optional, that is a toughie. So we're going to go through it today, start to finish. Do know that if you're applying to Duke during the 24-25 admissions cycle, you, of course, will also have to complete either the main coalition application essay or the main Common App essay, which, depending on the app, is, I recommend to be anywhere between 500 and 650 words. Beyond that, though, of course, you have the Duke supplement. And the Duke supplement is composed of a required essay of only 250 words or so, and then also an optional essay or two that you get to choose from to respond to up to 5 different prompts. Not up to, but you have 5 different prompts from which to choose to provide a response to 2 of them. So let's go through the required prompt first. What is your sense of Duke as a university and a community, and why do you consider it a good match for you? If there's something in particular about our offerings that attracts you, feel free to share that as well. Now, this prompt is returning from last cycle, and again, unfortunately, in my opinion, you only have 250 words to respond here. This is required, and you should take it very seriously. The more specific you can get, the better. If you could basically swap out the names for different colleges, but the rest of the essay basically remain the same, you have not done the specific job you need to do in tailoring this in a bespoke manner for Duke University. They are giving you the opportunity to talk about the university as not just an academic institution, but also as a community when you give your response. And why do you consider it a good match for you could, of course, touch on the academics of Duke, the overall, in terms of a particular major, the actual overall curriculum on offer at Duke, and or offerings that exist beyond the curriculum, the extracurricular life of Duke, the overall community vibes of Duke. But again, the big key here is that you be specific and that you don't bite off more than you can chew because you can't fit it in. If you try to tackle 6 or 7 different things that are specific to Duke, it's just going to read like a laundry list when you only have 250 words to work with. So as a result, my recommendation would be to pick 1 or 2 things and take a deep dive on those, or as deep of a dive as you possibly can in 250 words, in order to make this as compelling as possible. But again, these things have to be pretty unique to Duke, or at least the way in which you treat them have to be pretty unique to Duke, in the sense that if you're saying, I really love this major, then you got to talk about very specific ways in which that major is unique at Duke. Don't just write a love letter to that major, but you got to specifically align it with how is it unique at Duke and why does that resonate with you? So again, what is your sense of Duke as a university and a community, and why do you consider it a good match for you? If there's something in particular about our offerings that attracts you, feel free to share that as well. I don't exactly understand why that extra sentence is necessary, other than maybe some students need that leading sentence to focus. I don't know, but the first sentence is quite enough, thank you, in terms of telling me at least what I would need to do if I was a student, which is an intro sentence or 2 with a thesis, a body 4 sentences or so that support the thesis, and then a conclusion sentence or 2 that go a step beyond the thesis, that do not just repeat any ideas that you've already shared, but actually share a new, thoughtful, intriguing idea at the end. Again, the way in which you can make this work best is if, again, you connect the dots between the value system or the offerings at Duke and your value system, your goals, your character, your priorities. That way it will resonate most with the application readers at Duke. Now, the next responses are completely optional. You might just want to, if you're a very poor writer or a very poor communicator, want to call it a day after that prompt we just talked about. But 99 times out of 100, my recommendation is you don't want to leave any opportunity to waste. You don't want to waste it. So if you're given the opportunity to write 2 more 250-word responses, I say take it. And these are the 5 prompts that you could respond to in order to write 2 more short essays. All of them are returning, by the way, from last year, except for one, which we'll get to in a moment. We believe a wide range of viewpoints, beliefs, and lived experiences are essential to maintaining Duke as a vibrant and meaningful living and learning community. Feel free to share with us anything in this context that might help us better understand you and what you might bring to our community. This could be really good for someone who wants to bring to the fore their identity, their perspective, something that makes them unique or differentiated, or will allow them to uniquely contribute to the Duke community. And it doesn't have really any other structure otherwise. So that's a pro and a con. The pro is, of course, that you have freedom with the 250 words to provide the type of content you want to provide. The negative, of course, is that without structure, some students dive off a cliff. So you got to just force yourself to have structure. The structure, again, I would recommend is having an intro with a thesis, a body to support the thesis, and a conclusion that goes a step beyond the thesis. But beyond that, if you feel as though your viewpoints, beliefs, and or lived experiences are pretty unique, or at least one of them is, I would definitely try to put my stake in the ground on that one thing and elaborate on how that will contribute meaningfully to the Duke community. So again, feel free to share with us anything in this context that might help us better understand you and what you might bring to the community, whether it be your race or your country of origin or your weight or some perspective you have on life. Your job is to introduce it in the thesis and explain and sort of quickly summarize, how that will be meaningful. But then in the body, you're going to prove it. Again, this is not just a book report on some oddity that you bring to the table or something relatively rare that you bring to the table. It's also your responsibility to clarify for Duke how this would impact or influence or alter the trajectory of the overall Duke community, in my opinion. Again, that is what I would do, and you have only 250 words, so don't bite off more than you can chew. Again, this is the issue of fitting things in. You only have 250 words with Duke on all these responses, and so, or at least as far as I can see right now, definitely the first one. But I believe it's roughly the same amount of words for the other one. So as a result, you gotta keep it buttoned up, and therefore you don't want to try to cover too much ground. Rather you should go deep and narrow than broad and shallow. The second option for an optional essay would be tell us about an experience in the past year or two that reflects your imagination, creativity, or intellect. So this is where you're really specifically focusing on an experience and then reflecting on what that experience means on a grander level. That is very specific. I like that in the sense that it forces you to just describe a scene or an event, i.e. an experience that is relatively recent and therefore fresh in your mind. And then also really underscore by the end how that, again, I would connect it to how that has formed you, how it was a formative experience in such a manner where you moving forward will continue to carry with you that event and positively impact potentially the community you're part of at Duke and elsewhere as a result of how you sort of, your imagination was pumped up, or creativity was pumped up, or intellect in some way. So I think that this is ready-made to allow you to dovetail with not just describing the experience in the past year or two that reflects your imagination, creativity, or intellect, but also by the end, in the conclusion, it's perfectly set up where you can explicitly say how this will impact Duke and the type of person you are at Duke, and hopefully this will leave them wanting you even more. Again, with C, we have a situation where you're limited in words if you opt for C. We believe there is benefit in sharing or questioning our beliefs or values. Who do you agree with on the big, important things? Or who do you have the most interesting disagreements with? What are you agreeing or disagreeing about? You do not have to do both the agreeing person and the disagreeing person. I would just pick one. Because again, you only have so many words to work with here, so that you got to just pick one and run with it. But if you do this, this is because you want to really show, again, maybe a particular disagreement or a particular agreement you had with a particular person. But do know this is not a book report on that person. So yes, you're using that person as a prop, basically, to reflect back on you and what it says about how you hopefully civilly disagree with someone. Or if you pick someone you agree with, you want to paint a picture of sort of your value system by who you choose and what you choose to illuminate you agree with them on. So it's very important that you do that. Now remember, structure-wise, I'm very traditional. I like an intro with a thesis, a body to support the thesis, a conclusion that goes a step beyond the thesis and says something new, and not just a reworded thesis at the conclusion. But what I would also say here is it's ready-made. This option is for you to connect it back to how you see this evolving on Duke's campus. Again, that's not going to be a huge part of this, but a conclusion could absolutely name drop Duke and show how your relationship with this person, in agreeing with them and or disagreeing with them, really hopefully or disagreeing with them, not and or, hopefully it's just agreeing or disagreeing, will metastasize itself once you get to Duke with or without that person, right? So you want to show, give them the sense that this was not just a one-off, but that again, this was a formative relationship, one in which will inform how you choose to engage with others at Duke. And hopefully, again, this puts you in a positive light. D used to be E, but now it is second to last. Duke's commitment to inclusion and belonging includes sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. Feel free to share with us more about how your identity in this context has meaning for you as an individual or as a member of a community. Now, of course, this has been asked in one way, shape, or form for a number of years on Duke's supplement. It's very obvious that Duke is trying to increase the numbers of individuals from what are traditionally considered minority sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression backgrounds. But I say this is equal opportunity prompt. I mean, obviously, if you do identify as someone from a minority gender expression, minority gender identity, or minority sexual orientation, you may want to share that here so as to further differentiate your application supplement for Duke. But look, if being a straight woman is really important to you too, and you feel like that is wholly impacting how you engage with the world, you could theoretically write in response to this prompt as well. It's not only for individuals who come from minority sexual orientations, gender identities, or gender expressions, but clearly that's what it was built for initially. But I say, look, if this intrigues you, if you feel like this is a topic that really excites you, even if you're from what is deemed to be sort of the majority sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, go hog wild on it. Again, in terms of the structure, intro with the thesis, giving them a guidepost, sort of guidelight as to where you're going, a body that obviously proves the thesis, and then a conclusion that goes a step beyond the thesis. Again, my recommendation would be connected back to Duke by the end. That would be a lovely conclusion that says something new, where you can start to say how your identity will play out at Duke in a meaningful way, in a way that Duke would be attracted to. So you got to keep that in mind, because the Duke admissions officers do want diversity, but they generally come from a particular perspective. All right, and then finally, we have the fitting in prompt. We recognize that not fully fitting in a community or place can sometimes be difficult. Duke values the effort, resilience, and independence that may require. Feel free to share with us circumstances where something about you is different and how that's influenced your experiences or identity. I do not like this prompt for a variety of sort of reasons structurally. I do not like this prompt. I also feel like it's hard for students to wrap their head around. The key sentence, I believe, is the second sentence. Duke values the effort, resilience, and independence that may require. Here we're referring to fitting in a community or place. So this is very choppy. If you have a story where you can show yourself putting in effort, demonstrating resilience, or demonstrating independence in order to sort of fit your square peg into a round hole, that is a community that you maybe don't really jibe with perfectly, but you're doing it because you want to be a part of that community, you want to gain elements of the experience from that community, but you also want to maintain your own identity. This could work. The thing that makes this such a challenging prompt, again, is that you only have 250 words. And the last sentence, feel free to share with us circumstances where, I think that should be in which or through which, something about you is different and how that's influenced your experiences or identity. I would say was different, but I mean, there's a lot of ways in which I would rewrite this. And I have actually written an article about this on admissions.blog that I'll link below this video in the video's description, where you can get more of my thoughts. But long story short, if you have a unique identity and you want to get that identity across, or unique perspective and you want to get that perspective across, my recommendation would be to seriously consider the first optional prompt, which is, we believe a wide range of viewpoints, beliefs, and lived experiences are essential to maintaining Duke as a vibrant and meaningful living community and learning community. Feel free to share with us anything in this context that might help us better understand you and what you might bring to our community. But if you specifically want to focus on your resilience as a result of your difference, the resilience you've had to show as a result of being different, or the independence you've had to demonstrate as a result of being different, or the effort you've had to put into something as a result of being different, then you could do this one. But because the last sentence is so choppy, I think a lot of students may meander their way through the final sentences of their response. So I would say that if you do this prompt, you should read it more as follows. We recognize that fitting in can sometimes be difficult. Duke values the effort, resilience, and independence that may require. Discuss a time when fitting in influenced your experience or identity and describe how. If you can read it like that, I think you'll do a better job than reading it like it's currently written. But otherwise, remember, you can only respond to 2 out of the 5 optional prompts. At most, you don't have to do any of them. You could do just one of them. So don't force it if it doesn't feel natural to you, because you want to be writing about something you're passionate about writing about in order to make this one work, or these 2 work that you ultimately do. So don't feel like any of them are a must-do for you, unless you're really excited and motivated to go into it, right? And again, if you're not a great writer, you may just want to avoid the whole thing so as not to expose yourself as a poor writer, and because that would be embarrassing, right? And Duke doesn't want to know you're a poor writer if they want to give you the best shot of getting in. But if you're a pretty good writer and you're pretty confident in your communication skills, I just would gravitate to the 2 that you feel like would allow you to share something new about you that has not been shared in the Coalition or Common App essay, and or that is likely to not be really discussed much in your teacher recommendations or even your resume. You want to share new facets of yourself that will make Duke excited to accept you and have you become a member of their overall diverse and well-rounded community. You're going to just be one member of that community that's going to add your own unique thing. So that's why I say look inward. Don't try to do what your friends are doing when they're applying to Duke. Do what you think you have yet to share enough about regarding you, your goals, your experiences, your values, and try to take advantage of both optional responses as much as you can. I will also just note the fact that the rewording of this prompt, this last one from last year, just note that last year the prompt actually read as follows. We recognize that fitting in all the contexts we live in can sometimes be difficult. Duke values all kinds of differences and believes they make our community better. Feel free to tell us any ways in which you're different and how that has affected you or what it means to you. I feel like that was discontinued from last year relative to this new one because it sort of abuts breaking the law. If students basically respond, the students aren't breaking the law, but the college is put into a very tough place to potentially be tempted to break the law based off the affirmative action ruling. If a student just writes about being Hispanic here or being black here or being white here or whatever, I mean, no one's going to write about being white, but let's say they write about being a black woman, and without sharing how it's affected them, and they just focus too much on how, being, let's say, a black woman at an all-white school, that basically is obviously something that colleges are not supposed to consider. There's a lot of debate about this. Clearly, one's racial status is no longer legally supposed to be considered in the admissions process at any college or university in the United States. Many colleges have interpreted the Supreme Court ruling as giving them the freedom to consider a student's racial experience. But that particular prompt for last year maybe returned enough essay responses from the class of 2024 in high school, therefore the class of 2028 in college, that maybe just was focused one-dimensionally on the student's race. So that's why I think it's likely they reworded it for this year. This is just conjecture. I do not have any proof of this other than, it's a poorly worded prompt last year and this year. So it's like they really want to ask a question like this, but they just haven't gotten it out right. And so that's why now it reads, we recognize that not fully fitting in a community or place can sometimes be difficult. Duke values the effort, resilience, and independence that may require. Feel free to share with us circumstances where something about you is different and how that's influenced your experiences or identity. What they're trying to do is lead you to water. They're really trying to lead the writer to water. Do not focus as much on their difference, what makes them different, i.e. potentially their race, or other things too, of course, but the race is where we get into legal issues, but more on the resilience, effort, or independence the student has shown as a result of attempting to fit in and being different. But again, the way it's worded, it just really makes it very hard on a student. So again, if you want to get details about, having a unique perspective as, let's say, a black young man in a predominantly white school out in the open, again, I would still focus on not your race, but more on the fact that your perspective, your upbringing, maybe the way others view you has impacted your trajectory in some ways, and you've had to do different things. Again, you're free, and I encourage you to show how you've demonstrated resilience or independence, regardless of the prompt you choose. But I personally think you're going to have fewer minefields to navigate if you try to tackle that with prompt A, the we believe in a wide range of viewpoints prompt, as opposed to prompt E, we recognize that not fully fitting in a community prompt. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. I have been advising students on college application essays for nearly 2 decades, so I do know a thing or two about what I am speaking. But ultimately, every student is unique, and you got to do what you think is right for you and your goals. And if you feel like you can wrap your head around that final prompt, more power to you. Just remember, you only have 250 words. That's a handful of words compared to the Common App essay, especially. So you're going to have to be pretty quick and pretty specific and pretty tight and pretty concise and pretty articulate all at once, regardless of the prompts you tackle in this optional portion of the Duke supplement to their 24-25 supplement to the Common App or Coalition application. Now, I do want to give you one more bit of advice, which is, let's say you don't have the time, money, or interest in working with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, but you do want my 2 cents as it relates to whether or not your Duke application on the Common App in particular is ready for prime time. It's ready to be submitted. If you think you've done everything you want to do and you've yet to hit submit, or maybe you've already hit submit and you just want to get my 2 cents on whether or not it was in the best condition possible, you seriously may want to consider my newest product, which is known as my pre-read. When you finished your Common App and you want to know if it's as strong as possible or whether or not in its current condition your chances of admission are impressive, inconclusive, or inadequate, you want my pre-read. Getting my pre-read now means having me review your entire application, just like an admissions officer or admissions committee at Duke will review it later, and receiving by email, no later than the time you reserve, a comprehensive report highlighting what's working and what's not on your full Common App, and in this case, your Duke Common App Supplement. If you've yet to submit your Common App, my pre-read may motivate you to make adjustments to it before your deadline. If you've already submitted your Common App to Duke, my pre-read will prepare you for what I deem to be your likely admissions outcome at Duke University. There are no promises. This is infotainment. Just keep that in mind. This is informational and entertaining. There are no guarantees in the world of college admission, but you might just want my 2 cents, like I said, about whether or not you did all you could if you have already submitted it. Or if you've yet to submit it, you just may want to do one more once over to be sure there's nothing glaring that could be inhibiting your chances of admission at Duke, whether it be ED or regular at Duke. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel. If you would like to work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, I encourage you to go to my website, which is collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.